So in the first part of our two-part series, we looked at the details behind William Kemmler being sent to the electric chair for murder. Now, this was a battle within the electrical corporate structure, a battle within the legal system of the late 1800s, and Kemmler was eventually sent to the electric chair. Now, the execution was to take place at the Auburn prison in the state of New York. As an oak chair was bolted to the floor, a thick black electric wire running from the base of the chair to the wall. Now, on the chair were two permanent electrodes, one being a simple inverted metal bowl which was to be strapped over the head. The second electrode was to be strapped directly onto the back of the condemned. Kemmler was led in and spoke his last words to the 25 witnesses, which included 14 doctors. "Gentlemen, I wish you all good luck. I believe I am going to a good place, and I am ready to go. I want only to say that a great deal has been said about me that is untrue. I am bad enough. It is cruel to make me out worse. Now take your time and do it all right, Warden. There is no rush. I don't want to take any chances on this thing, you know." Now Kemmler took his seat. The executioner E.F. Hare strapped him down. A black hood was placed over his head. Harrison disappeared behind a wall that the black wire ran to and threw the switch at 1,000 volts. Now, this execution on August 6, 1890 happened when Kemmler was awakened at 5 a.m. He dressed quickly and put on a suit, necktie, and white shirt. After breakfast and some prayer, the top of his head was shaved. At 6:38, Kemmler entered the execution room, and Warden Charles Durston presented Kemmler to the witnesses in attendance. Now, witnesses remarked that Kemmler was composed at his execution, as he did not scream, cry, and resist in any way. He sat down, was ordered to get up by the warden so a hole could be cut in his suit through which a second electrical lead could be attached. This was done, and Kemmler sat down again. Now, because the generator was charged with 1,000 volts, which was thought to be accurate enough to induce quick unconscious and cardiac arrest, the chair had already been thoroughly tested, as a horse had been electrocuted the day before. Current passed through Kemmler for 17 seconds. The power was turned off, and Kemmler was declared dead by Edward Charles Spitzke. Witnesses noted Kemmler was still breathing. The attendant physicians, Spitzke and Carlos Frederick MacDonald, came forward to examine Kemmler. After confirming he was still alive, Spitzke reportedly called out, "Have the current turn on again. Quick, no delay." In the second attempt, Kemmler was shocked with 2,000 volts, but blood vessels under his skin ruptured and bled, and some witnesses claimed his body caught on fire. The New York Times reported instead that an awful odor began to permeate the Burdett chamber, and then, as though to cap the climax of this fearful sight, it was seen that the hair under and around the electrode on the head and the flesh under and around the electrode at the base of the spine was singeing. The stench was unbearable. Upon autopsy, doctors had found the blood vessels under the cap of his skull had carbonized, and the top of his brain had hardened. Witnesses report the smell of burning flesh, and several nauseated spectators tried to leave the room. Now, the full killing took approximately 8 minutes. The competitive newspaper reporters covered the Kemmler execution, jumped on the abnormalities as each newspaper source tried to outdo each other with sensational headlines and reports. A reporter who witnessed it also said it was an awful spectacle, far worse than hanging. Westinghouse later commented they would have done better using an axe. Now, Kemmler is buried in the precincts of the prison where his execution took place. Now, according to published reports at the time, and I think the New York Times said it best, the great experiment of electrical execution had been launched. New York State had thrown off forever the barbarities, the inhumanities of hanging its criminals. But had it? Words will not keep pace with what followed. Simultaneously, with a click of the lever, the body of a man in a chair straightened. Every muscle of it seemed to be drawn to its highest tension. It seemed as though it might have been thrown across the chamber were it not for the straps which held it. Now, though there was no movement of the eyes, the body was as rigid as though cast in bronze, save for the index finger of the right hand, which closed up so tightly that the nail penetrated the flesh on the first joint, and the blood trickled out of the arm of the chair. Now, when Kemmler convulsed so violently that he partially pulled out the retaining bolts under the chair began to rock. Now, the electricity cackled and burned out the electrode on Kemmler's back, again causing his skin to start smoldering. Now, according to the doctor as well, who moved in to pronounce Kemmler dead, the skin on his body was bright red at one point. Now, when Kemmler's mouth opened, allegedly a bloody foam flowed out and his chest heaved. Now, the local newspaper, New York World, wrote, "The doctors say that the victim did not suffer, only his maker knows if that be true. To the eye, it looked as though he was in convulsive agony." Now, post-execution, in spite of the less than successful first attempt, America plodded on, hoping to perfect her system of capital punishment. Now, indeed, the first series of executions were carried out successfully until July 22nd, 1993, when William Taylor reacted to 10,000 votes, much like Kemmler had. His body lunged every which way against the straps, and breathing became excessively labored. When the switch was turned off, Taylor's body twitched as he was still alive. The executioner noticed that one of the wires had broken. Taylor was unstrapped and moved to an adjacent medical room where the execution apparatus were repaired. The doctors actually gave medical assistance, including a morphine painkiller and chloroform, to keep him as comfortable as possible. Taylor's heart was beating, and he was breathing on his own. After 15 minutes, Taylor was returned to the electric chair, strapped in again, and the current reapplied. This time he died. This not deterred the politicians. Now, by 1906, there had been over 100 condemned prisoners dispatched for execution, including women, which I talked about in previous podcasts. Now, there was even a double execution by electrocution of a co-worker, boyfriend, and girlfriend pair, Ruth Schneider and Harry Jude Gray, for the murder of Ruth's husband, Albert Schneider, to make a life for himself on his $100,000 life insurance policy. The trial was sensational and resulted in books and movies, the later under the name of Double Indemnity. The couple was electrocuted months apart at Sing Sing prison on January 12, 1928. Now, the execution of Ruth Schneider was caught on tape by Chicago Tribune reporter Tom Howard, had a concealed camera strapped to his ankle and attached to a shutter switch which ran under his clothing to his wrists. His picture, seen in this podcast, made legal as well as photography history. It was the first picture ever taken of electrocution, as a gruesome image made the cover of New York Daily News on January 13, 28. Headline: Dead. Ruth Schneider's death pictured. This is perhaps the most remarkable exclusive picture in the history of criminology, which I tend to agree. It was taken, I think he had attached to his ankle, but you say the foot, so it was like what they call a fisheye vertical. Now, as of 2021, no other country except the Philippines, which has great connections to the States, has ever used the electric chair as a form of inflicting capital punishment. Now, most American states now prefer lethal injection, although a few have retained the electric chair. Now, this information as well came from the duhame.org website. Check it out, very interesting, under the Law Museum subcategory, which of course is a legal training location. So again, to me, execution was forced in the American public before it was perfected. But what execution does for a lot of people, if you see that Black Christmas episode, you'll know what I'm talking about. It not only executes the prisoner, it allows people to see it. People don't really go to see, rarely go to see hangings anymore, because in Canada, at the tail end of the hanging in the 1960s, it was not public. So executions are very public in the States. But how much of a deterrent is it, as we say? I really don't know. But I provide this information as a public service. I'm not glorifying execution or promoting or not asking for it. People can make their own decisions. But as a person who's a member of his own family, was the last person to be hung for murder in New Brunswick, Joe Richard, he was a bad individual. If he was not executed, he probably would have murdered again. So that sums up the argument on my case. I can't say any other case. It's not for me to say. let the courts and people smarter than me on the legal side take care of it. So this is the latest of our True Crime podcast. If you like what you're doing here, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, when you sit down, always check for the wires. You never know when you might be a guinea pig. You know what I'm saying? Have a good day. Bye.